Welcome to Electronic Campfire. I'm your host, The Casual. As a huge Zelda fan, I've been thinking about something for quite some time. And that is, can you use any of these things that I'm going to mention today to predict the end of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom? Because while I've been playing, and I've played probably over 100 hours of Breath of the Wild, one thing I started to notice, especially with the trailer reveals and the information that came out for Tears of the Kingdom, is that The Legend of Zelda seems to have quite a few things that it crosses over with. The first thing that we're going to go over is the crossover or the inspiration that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild gets from, I think you say it Ghibli, or is it Ghibli? Ghibli kind of sounds better. Ghibli makes me fucking think of giblet gravy, so it kind of diminishes it a bit. But giblet gravy is good, but it is bad for you. All right, two in the weeds, two stun locked. Anyways, if you haven't been living under a rock, a very uncultured rock, Studio Ghibli is a titan of an animation studio that's been around for a couple of decades now, easy, and they've produced absolute banger after banger, whether it be Nausicaa in the Wind, whether it be Howl's Moving Castle, whether it be Kiki's Delivery Service, whether it be Grave of the Fireflies, whether it be Princess Mononoke. Banger after banger after banger after banger. Like, Studio Ghibli does not miss. They do a lot of these very whimsical worlds with very potential serious issues in it. Well, aside from maybe like My Neighbor Totoro, they have these folklorish levels to them. And then of course they have that social commentary. You don't really have to look too far to get that social commentary. You know, it's crazy too. For the longest time, like, I would wear some of the Princess Mononoke stuff. I was kind of a poser. Wore some of the Princess Mononoke stuff. I knew the character looked badass, but I didn't really know anything about him. I could deduce from the types of outfits that I had with Mononoke on it that, like, all right, don't mess with this character. This character can scrap. And lo and behold, when I did finally see it, yeah, she can scrap. Princess Mononoke is the most interesting parallel to me. But I wanted to go over Laputa, and I think it's Laputa or Lapit, whatever. Lap and Castle in the Sky. Because that one's super interesting to me, because the whole premise of that one is there is a floating sky location and nobody knows exactly how it got there. And that's pretty stark parallel with the floating islands in Tears of the Kingdom. Now, granted, I have my own, well, not my own, I think it's almost common knowledge among people that think about it for more than 5 minutes, the connection between Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom. But for now, at least, we'll just pretend like they don't have anything to do with each other. But Laputa and Castle in the Sky, it's basically about this forgotten land that's just floating in the sky. Nobody's sure how it got there, or even if it's there to begin with. It was thought to be made up or mythical or imagined or whatever the case may be. And one of the protagonist's parents took a picture of that mythical location. So it was more of this, it kind of had that Bigfoot mystique to it, except for the picture is not as blurry as the Bigfoot picture. And you can tell when you look at Laputa, or at least the location, if you decide to watch the film, you definitely should watch the film, that it's littered with like a bunch of buildings and debris and different things to show that a society was here and it's no longer here. I think one of the main characters may be Patsu, and I think his dad took a picture of it or something, or her. I can't remember. I always struggle with characters' names unless they really leave a strong impression on me. But anyways, aside from it being a floating location, just out there floating, defying the laws of physics, more interesting stuff is on there. Is the fact that it has a lot of foliage and it has giant servant robots there, which servant robots, the Guardians, if you've played Skyward Sword, either one of these, before you even get to this video, I highly recommend that you watch that before you go further here, or at least not watch it, goddammit. You play them before you go further. or you get you a slightly overpriced copy on the Switch, or you can get it aftermarket. If you're lucky, you can probably get like $30, who knows. But anyways, highly recommend doing that prior, but if you don't, it's completely fine. So for Laputa, this mythical location is obscured by, I guess you could say, like a wind tunnel that has it surrounded by clouds. So nobody can really just see that it's there. And then when the dad did get a picture of it, it was slightly not obscured by clouds, which I can't remember exactly why that happened. Like he just got like maybe 60% of it in the picture. But what makes it more cool to me is that when you look at the Tears of the Kingdom, you'll see like a giant cyclone wind tunnel kind of thing. A couple of years ago, I made a video about what they should add to the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and cyclone/tornadoes is definitely one of my suggestions. And not to get the crypto bros excited, which that may or may not be a dated reference by the time that you end up listening. But Laputa also had Ethereum. It's this mystic material that would glow, which if you've played Breath of the Wild, you know another material that is pretty mythic and glows. And that's going to be the Luminous Stones. And the story behind those is there's supposed to be souls trapped in those stones. It's a very interesting comparison to draw between the two, much like Castle in the Sky, with the Ethereum being the energy source for raising that location into the sky. The Luminous Stones are probably going to be doing the same thing. I would imagine that the souls of the dead, it's supposed to be rumored, but just for folklore's sake, we're going to say that that's absolutely true. So more than likely, souls of the dead is definitely going to have some energy to that, which is probably going to be maybe the reason, or it may not be the sole reason, but it may be the reason, or at least on a mechanical level, maybe the reason that all the islands are in the sky as they are. And you know what? While I'm thinking about it, I think I just remembered or at least some of the characters now. So Pazu that was the orphan boy. Sheeta, because I wanted to call her Cheetah, but Sheeta was the girl with the mysterious crystal thing, or amulet, or necklace, or whatever you want to call it, I think she was being pursued by, what was it, air pilot? It was either air pirates or the government or something to that effect. I have to go back and just watch it again. I really shouldn't have done this off of memory, but I think we're skating by just off of memory. Those are the two characters that end up exploring Laputa. And I think Muska was the jackass. He's the Ganondorf of this story. He can't let go of the past. You come to find out that I think the lesson of it, or one of the lessons of this movie, is to embrace change, embrace the future, which I need to learn that lesson, but that's another thing entirely. And at some point too, Sheeta, she falls, which I think this is super interesting. She was by itself is not really interesting at all, but she falls, right? Under normal circumstances, somebody falls from that height, they would come down with a bad case of deadness, but she of course didn't. Protagonists tend to not die early. One thing that I noticed is in the Tears of the Kingdom trailer, Zelda falls. It's kind of presumed, like you can't tell if she died or anything, or at the time of this recording, nobody really knows. But she falls. Well, Zelda falls, and then Sheeta falls, but Sheeta is saved by the amulet, right? And because of what we mentioned earlier with the energy, or the mysterious energy of that, the Ethereum of that amulet, it could very well be the case that in our parallel, it's probably going to be either one of three things. It's either going to be the Luminous Stones save Zelda, because there's a ton of Luminous Stones down there. It's either going to be that glowy hand that saves Zelda, or it could be the glowy hand attaches to Link, who saves Zelda. That'll be number 2. Or 3, or it could be Zelda's powers, or her Hylia powers, or it could be any combination of those 3. What I would really like, though, is in all those sky islands that randomly appeared in Tears of the Kingdom, I'm hoping there's some even higher ups. Like, I really want this civilization fleshed out. And they did showcase like some Zonai items. So as far as the Zonai being the parallel to the race that disappeared in Laputa. So hoping that they really flesh out the Zonai finally, because Breath of the Wild was this whole thing to where the party happened 100 years ago, and you were fashionably, well, actually, you got your ass knocked out, so you were on time to the party. You caught a fade, and then you had to wake back up. Well, the Link woke back up, and you joined the party too late. For Laputa Castle in the Sky and the Breath of the Wild sequel, Breath of the Wild and the Breath of the Wild sequel, you would finally be exploring a lost civilization. Maybe there's a warning against misusing technology. Maybe. Because even in flashbacks in Breath of the Wild, the king was definitely wary of the advancement of the Sheikah technology. So that's why they ended up making them bury the divine beast, denounce all that technology. You know, the split between the Yiga and the regular Sheikah. That's when that happened. Could be a misuse of technology. It could be that angle, or at least a disagreement on the use of technology. The fact that they gave her the Sheikah slate and Link does not have the Sheikah slate at all anywhere, and it's clearly been replaced with the arm. She's also had it in the, like, her stock image. Is it a stock image? Whatever it's called. The character model thing or whatever the hell. I can't remember what it's called. It has her with it. I'm pretty sure it's going to get some use. And she's going to be the one to use it. And they probably got inspiration from that from Age of Calamity. Using it in Age of Calamity with Zelda was pretty cool. I still preferred the Sacred Arrow part, but using just that itself and doing combos was very satisfying. Let me talk to you all about Princess Mononoke. This little anime flick from Japan that's got it all. A badass princess and a badass prince named Ashitaka. That's kind of a sick name. At first I kind of hated saying it, but it's a pretty cool name. And then the forest protector, Princess Mononoke. And it's a fight between the humans and forest spirits. The humans are trying to mine iron in this story. It's not a super complicated story, but it has a fantastic message. They're chopping down the forest. They're being dicks about it, taking a little bit more than what they need. And by a little, I mean a lot. And by a lot, I mean everything. But the animals they're really not having it. It's like, all right, fuck this. And Ashitaka tries to play peacemaker, not the HBO Peacemaker, which you all should watch, but no, just straight up Peacemaker. But it's not going to be easy, of course. That would be, when do creatures agree? We fight all the fucking time. But anyways, there's magic and there's spirits and there's all kind of crazy stuff in this movie, but fair warning, keep it in mind, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's some pretty sad moments in here, and there's some pretty gruesome moments, and there's some gruesome moments that are like funny too. If you ever watch this movie, you'll see exactly what I mean, but it's like gruesome and funny at the same time. It's like, should I be laughing at this? But anyway, anyways, and within like the first 10 minutes or so of watching the movie, you already tell it's going to be a deep connection to nature. Like both Breath of the Wild and Princess Mononoke have a protagonist that seems to have a connection to nature and the environment around them. Link in Breath of the Wild, he needs to learn to live, or at least what we have to do is we have to learn to live off the land and use the resources around us to survive, which will make you appreciate what's around you more often than not. While Ashitaka in Princess Mononoke becomes connected to the forest spirits, and he's got to navigate the conflict between human and nature. I love when I first played Breath of the Wild, it was really awe-inspiring. I played Breath of the Wild before I watched Princess Mononoke, and the scenery was pretty incredible. It's just because I'm so used to very linear Zelda games, and they always look good for their times, but this sprawling, like there's a reason that when you first go out of the Shrine of Resurrection that it does that pan. It's like, oh shit, I can go everywhere that I look. It's just wild. This is the thing. I'm holding this in my hand. Like at the time, it was just kind of mind-blowing. What I'm saying with this is both movies have extremely awe-inspiring scenery. And you really can tell that Breath of the Wild took some inspiration from Princess Mononoke. If it didn't, it's an extreme coincidence that it's got such levels of obvious influence to me. And the sceneries really invoke like a sense of wonder and awe, like this vast open world for both of them to explore. It's kind of a shame that they do one and dones with. It's kind of good that Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki, the person that makes all these bangers, does one and dones with the movies and stuff that he makes, but the world is so interesting, it's kind of a shame that it doesn't get explored more. But I guess that would ruin the mystique of it, or it may not. It could make it better, but you know, that's an artist for you, you know. But Breath of the Wild features a pretty decent variety of wildlife. Not as much as I would like, but a decent level. I mean, you literally have dragons flying across the sky. And then you've got deer, of course, which, if you've watched Princess Mononoke, that'll sound very familiar. And then, of course, you've got themes of balance and harmony, which I will say balance and harmony is more of like a standard trope. And it's really just a trope because it's true. In life, you really have to have balance. Side note for a second, people. You really do have to have balance in almost everything. That's really how we're able to live in the first place. If you get too much water, you drown. If you get too much O2, you die of oxygen poison. You get too much hate, it'll not put you in a good place. You get too much love, it can make you conceited. With a pool, if the pool is not pH balanced, it can be either too basic or too acidic. Everything in life, whether it be cooking, whether it be talking to people, whether it be working, whether it be just the basic building blocks of life in and of itself, whether it be us being in the Goldilocks zone in the solar system, whatever the case may be, everything needs balance and harmony. So it's a trope, but it's true. But they both do balance and harmony. Both work to explore the themes of balance and harmony between like the Hylians and like the creatures of Hyrule and nature. And in Breath of the Wild, like if you look at the structures, a lot of it really does kind of blend in with it's pretty harmonious. Like there's no, now granted, of course, this is after the calamity happens, so really I guess to a point you really have no choice, but there's not a major industrial happening that's like attacking nature. It seems pretty harmonious in Breath of the Wild. And Princess Mononoke definitely preaches, harmony with nature, as it should be. Both of them really explore those exceptionally well. And Ashitaka is trying to bring peace between the humans and the forest spirits in Princess Mononoke, and that's supposed to restore balance to their world, or at least their location. Because I'm not sure if I guess it could be a one-to-one with Earth, but I'm not sure exactly how far that reaches. But anyways, they're both, of course, influenced by Japanese culture. This, of course, goes without saying. Nintendo is a deeply Japanese company. They've been around for over 100 years. And Ghibli, I can't remember how old Ghibli is. I know it's decades and decades old, but I don't think it's as old as Nintendo. Because I think Nintendo came around in like the 1800s, maybe like the late 1800s, or damn sure it was like the early 1900s at minimum. They've been around for a minute, and I did a video on that. Feel free to check that out. But I really feel, of course, and it's really to nobody's surprise, I'm kind of just throwing it here as like a bonus, but both of them definitely draw from Japanese art and architecture, or at least Breath of the Wild definitely does. And then Princess Mononoke derives from ancient Japanese folklore and mythology, and Breath of the Wild, I would say, does as well, with the roaming dragons and the mountain spirit, or the guardian of the mountain. Also, if you've made it this far into the video or podcast, definitely feel free to hit that like button. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, we continue. And then, of course, you got the similarities between Ashitaka and Link, which that's it's a pretty common thing as well. I will say this, since the stories for Breath of the Wild and Princess Mononoke and I'd say a good chunk of Studio Ghibli films, because they're basic, but not necessarily in a bad way. And matter of fact, necessarily is not even the word. Omit that word. It's not bad that they're basic because it makes it to where people can get them from all walks of life. They don't have to have like an extreme sense of knowledge, or you don't have to think as hard to get like really good messages. And I mean that not in a bad way at all. It's really good to have it accessible to everyone. That's really how I should structure my videos in general, to make it to where even if you're not super familiar with something or you're not super well read, the most amount of people can still get that. It's called lowest common denominator, but in this case it's definitely not bad. But that's part of the reason that they have so many similarities. They're very simple. Link's obviously the protagonist hero. Ashitaka's the protagonist hero, both young males. Although you can't really tell looking at Link, but that's just me being a jerk. Anyways, they're both pretty brave. I mean, I have to give Link props where props is due, and their mission to save the world. They're both skilled at combat, even though Link does the same moves in Breath of the Wild. That's exceptionally boring, but just for the narrative's sake. He's skilled at combat, and they're willing to risk their lives to protect others. Zelda and Princess Mononoke, I mean, hell, number one, they're both princesses. They're both pretty strong-willed princesses, I would say. Zelda falters a little bit, and Mononoke, which I guess you can call, she's also called San. San will scrap. Zelda is prissy, but she's strong-willed, like I said. And both, much like the male counterparts for both series, both of the princesses are trying to protect what's important to them. They both basically putting their lives on the line to get that done. And then of course you've got not as much of a similarity, but I think it's similar enough. You've got Calamity Ganon for Breath of the Wild and Lady Eboshi for Princess Mononoke, which Eboshi. Whew, I don't know why, but I got a thing for her. She is a baddie. Anyways, both, let me tell you something. Both Calamity Ganon and Lady Eboshi, they're both very powerful, which I think that's one of the things. I like strong females. Not the step on me simp kind of shit. I'm completely good on that. The rest can have that. But I just admire strong conviction. Like Spike said, I like a woman who can kick my ass. But but anyways, I would actually say in a roundabout way, Lady Akoto would be Ganondorf. Not Ganon, but Ganondorf. The hatred, which would be the equivalent of malice in Princess Mononoke, that would be the Calamity Ganon aspect. Because in like the first bit of the movie, the Princess Mononoke movie, Ashitaka is being chased by a infected boar that's infected with malice and hate. Well, I'm about to say malice, but infected with hatred. But shit, the way that it looks disgusting, and it even moves. It's very similar. It's extremely similar to the malice that you see in Breath of the Wild. It feels like almost a damn one-to-one between them. But the reason that Ashitaka is getting chased in the first place, number one, he's wrong place at wrong time. Number two, and the boar and or the malice, I think it's a combination of, or maybe it's the boar infected with the malice, so it has that hatred stacked onto him. He's chasing him because of just pure hatred. It's like, I hate what you did, or what you are doing, did and doing to the forest. I hate you for that, and you will pay. So, considering the fact that what I'm assuming was Ganon in the trailer, where he said, leave no survivors, I'd say they both too have themes of redemption for both Breath of the Wild and Princess Mononoke. Breath of the Wild, or in Breath of the Wild, Link's got to atone for basically getting his ass handed to him to regain his power and to defeat Calamity Ganon. And in Princess Mononoke, Ashitaka seeks redemption for killing a god, and he seeks to restore balance to the world as a result, because it wasn't that he wanted to, which you can see if you watch the movie from the get-go. It's not that he wanted to, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But really, I wanted to focus on Princess Mononoke in Breath of the Wild because there's just so many similarities there. Like the spirit of the forest in Mononoke disappears when night is gone and when it turns to day, and it always comes back when it's nighttime again. I mean, Mount Sasori, what can I say? It does the same exact thing. The Kodamas, even the sound that they make when they tilt their head is very akin to the sound that makes when Koroks do things. When they do their yeah, like they do that shit when you basically look for them for no damn reason after a certain point. They more or less make the same noises. Then the snake, ooze, whatever the hell you want to call it in Princess Mononoke, I mean, like I said, it's pretty much akin to malice. Like it's damn near one-to-one. Because Demise and Ganondorf, hate, a ton of hate, endless amount of hate for all eternity, hate. They're definitely part of the hateocracy, and they definitely went to the haters ball. Like I mentioned, Ashitaka riding an elk, Link riding a deer, extremely familiar. Even the attire kind of feels relaxed, like a Studio Ghibli film. The boar chasing down Ashitaka in the beginning is reminiscent to the Breath of the Wild trailer from 2016, where Link is being chased by a guardian, which I still wish it was like that. That looked incredible. It's a shame that that really didn't make it into the final game, because that would have been sick. I mean, Guardian fighting was already kind of, it was wild when you first fight them, but that would have been incredible to see it like that. But you know, it is what it is. But Link's arm being damaged is the same as Ashitaka's arm being damaged. It's damn near 1-to-1. I think there's a scene that I saw when I was watching Princess Mononoke to where it literally looks like the same scene from the Tears of the Kingdom trailer, where Link kind of like reels back from it and Ashitaka's like reeling back from his arm too. So it's almost like a 1-to-1. It's an extreme, almost like it was deliberate. Almost like it was deliberate. But you've got the Deer God, which again, that reminds me of Satsuri from Breath of the Wild. From the mountain that glows. If you ever played the game, it's from the mountain that glows. Almost same thing. And it's supposed to be the guardian of that mountain. And the Deer God is supposed to be the guardian of the forest, but it's mostly mountains there. So I guess guardian of the mountain probably too. Forest/mountain. They don't really specify too much, but let me not get stun locked here. And let's go ahead and continue. So, with the similarities that I see between Ghibli and Tears of the Kingdom, if you know the ending of Princess Mononoke, and or you know the ending of Laputa, Castle in the Sky, can that tell the potential end of Tears of the Kingdom? Could be some other things that could tell the